welcome to you once again in the Department of English, RBNB College, Srirampur. And I am coming with a new video which is about a famous English sonnet entitled as "The World is Too Much with Us," written by a famous English romantic poet, William Wordsworth. The sonnet is prescribed at FYBA General English paper number 1. So for the semester 1. Now we are going to, here is the lesson plan for you. First of all, these are the points under which we are going to study this sonnet. The first is French Revelation. It is very important to know the French Revelation before studying the poem. The second point is English Romanticism. What is Romanticism? What are its features and who are the chief contributors of it? The third one is William Wordsworth, the romantic poet. How the features of Romanticism are reflected in the work of William Wordsworth, especially in this sonnet. The next point is the octave. At the last lecture, I defined what is octave. The next point is the sistate of the sonnet. I also defined this term at the last lecture. And the last part is the conclusion. Now we have to start the poem. I hope that you would like this video. Okay. Now, as far as this sonnet is concerned, the world is too much with us. Actually, the sonnet is composed in 1802, but it was published in 1807. Means it is published after 5 years. Okay. Now let us have to start with the point to point. So my first point is French Revelation. So the first point is French Revelation, which took place in 1789 up to 1799. So it was fought against King Louis XVI, who made, and the people, the common people, especially the downtrodden people, we can say, how injustice, the drought, the prices, the taxes, so it is the injustice made them forced to make the revelation. In those days, there were 3 estates, just like we say 3 classes. So there were 3 estates: the first estate, the second estate, and the third estate. In the first estate, the clergymen, or we can say religious people, and the leaders, they are in first estate. In the second estate, the noble person, the VIP, we can say, they comes in this class. And in the third estate, the downtrodden people, the common people, the average people, they are in this estate. First of all, the third estate is the working class. They are working for the society and they are the sufferers. On the contrary, the rich people or the high class people, they are living the life of luxury. And this injustice made the people to make revelation against the king. So perhaps we have studied it in the history paper. So this is not my part. What I am going to say, that French Revelation has given the 3 principles to the world. And which are they? Liberty, equality, and fraternity. So these are the 3 principles French Revelation had given to the world. So these principles plays a vital role in literature even also, in England even also, because there is a great impact of these principles on literature even also. Before William Wordsworth, the age is known as neoclassicism, and the age of William Wordsworth is known as romanticism. Now, when you study the poems of neoclassical age, I mean before William Wordsworth, the poetry or the literature is very difficult to understand for the common people. It is only for the learned people. It is only for the educated people. But the common people, average people, poor people we say, or downtrodden people, they cannot understand the meaning of literature. So literature was written only for the higher class, we can say. So indirectly we say that the literature in the neoclassical age is related to brain. Literature is for brain. And this is the revolt against this rule. William Wordsworth, the generation of romantic poets, they made revolt against this neoclassical age. They started to think, why should the poetry should be chained into different types of the rules? It should be free. That is why I said there is a great impact of French Revolution on English literature, especially the romantic literature. They wanted that the poetry should be free from the rules and regulations, the traditional rules, the rules of neoclassical age. So, it was the age of Pope and Johnson. These were the, we can say, chief contributors of neoclassical age. Even John Donne, Herbert Wagon, these people or these poets belong to this neoclassical age. And William Wordsworth and his friends, just like S.T. Coleridge or his predecessors. What is predecessors? Predecessors means the literary person of the same generation. Okay, so I would give their names later on, just like John Keats, William Blake, P.B. Shelley, or S.T. Coleridge. These are his predecessors. We will come it to later on. First of all, we have to notice that neoclassical age, there are rules and regulations, and poetry was written for the brain only. And Wordsworth and this generation started to think, why should not poetry should be written for heart? Okay, so the poetry is bound together with a heavy chain, we can say, chain of rules and regulations. And Wordsworth made the challenge, make revolt against these traditional rules. And S.T. Coleridge, that is Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and Wordsworth gave the challenge to this age. So, when we see the features of romantic age, what are the characteristics of the literature written in romantic age? We find that first it is revolt against the neoclassicism. It is break from the set rules designed by the earlier people, the earlier writer, or the earlier artist, and they have interest in country life. Here again, the meaning of country is different. Country means here not nation. Country means rural area. Country means village. So this generation keeps interest in the country life, and they wanted to paint the same in their work. Then the common people, if you read the literature, you find that first the literature was written on gods and goddesses. Then the literature was written on the kings and the queens and the prince and the princess. That is upper class. For example, Hamlet, Macbeth. Othello, King Lear, these are belongs to higher class of people. But for the first time, this romantic, in the romantic age, their interest was changed and it was shifted from gods and goddesses and royal person in the society to common people. In short, we can say that the interest of the romantic people is common life. They want to paint the common life. They love liberty and freedom in the field of literature. And because they wanted to make themselves free, they wanted that their literature should get freedom from the, we can say, rules and regulations. Then the naturalism and supernaturalism. I remember here the poem written by S.T. Coleridge, that is Kubla Khan. And in the poem Kubla Khan, here he wants to build his castle. Castle means palace in the air. Is it possible? No, absolutely not. We cannot build castle or house in the air. It is not possible. So it is beyond natural. It is known as supernatural. So we also see the supernaturalism in the work of romantic poetry. Then there is the predominance of imagination and emotion. It means the literary work written in this period, in the romantic period, it is directly related to imagination or emotion. And emotion or passions, they are related to heart. So we say that why the romantic age or the work in the romantic age, why the poetry in the romantic age so popular, this is the reason, because it is directly related to heart and it is not related to head or brain. It is about us, common people, so we love them. Okay, then the chief message given by the romantic poets is return to nature. So people forget about the role of nature. They are thinking of themselves. And this romantic, there are a number of poems. Just like William Blake says in the Tiger, burning bright. So he wrote the poem on tiger, the wild animal. If you see or if you read the poems of John Keats, his odes, very interesting, very enthusiastic poems he had written. So how the art is immortal, he is described in Ode to Grecian Urn. While in the Baby Celes, the Skylark, Ode to Skylark, he says how the wind is destructive and constructive. So every poem gives us message, return to nature. So this is one of the important aspect of English romanticism, is to return to nature. Another feature of romanticism is, as far as the style and diction is concerned. What do you mean by diction? Last lecture while studying sonnet number 29, I have explained it already. That diction means language. So for prose, we use the word language. And so far the poetry is concerned, we use the word diction. So diction of this poem is very simple. The words are taken from the common people. Okay, sometimes even if you read the poems in your mother tongue, sometimes you cannot understand the meaning of that poem. You have to find out the dictionary to find out the meaning of those particular words. Why? Because some people, some poet, they use very bombastic words, very high class words, and common or average people, average reader cannot understand the meaning behind it. So, romantic poet made the challenge to the neoclassical age and they freed it. They used the language of common man. the language of average man. They taken the subject from the nature. After I start this sonnet, you will notice this thing, how Wordsworth is simple one and how his subjects are taken from the nature. So, so far as the contributors of English Romanticism is concerned, that who are the poets? Because it is an age of poetry. Instead of prose, prose is also written. But poetry is so popular in this age. William Blake is the, we can say, the founder of English Romanticism. Actually, he starts at some level. Then comes William Wordsworth. Then comes S.T. Coleridge, that is Samuel Taylor Coleridge. And this is the first generation of English Romanticism. And in the next generation, we have the poets like Lord Byron, John Keats, and P.B. Shelley, that is Percy Bysshe Shelley. Some says Shelley, some says Shelley. Okay, so don't bother about the pronunciation. So here is the, we can say, background of English Romanticism. Now I come to the actual sonnet, that is the second part is over here, and now I would like to start the third part, that we should know something about the poet, that what is his place in the literature, how he is famous one. So the third one is William Wordsworth, a romantic poet. So William Wordsworth was born on 7th of April 1770 at Cockermouth, and he was passed away or died on April 23, 1850. Number of his poems are very famous, but which I like most, they are Tintern Abbey, Solitary Reaper, Ode to Duty, and Daffodils. These are very famous poems written by William Wordsworth, which I like. Even I like his number of sonnets, and The World is Too Much with Us. It is one of them. Now, when William Wordsworth starts his career as a poet, his friend S.T. Coleridge and William Wordsworth together published a book. The name of that book is Lyrical Ballads, which was published in 1798. There are 23 poems. William Wordsworth has written 19 poems, while 4 poems are written by S.T. Coleridge. And William Wordsworth, in the preface of that book, that what the book is about, what the aims and objectives of the writing this book, it is known as the preface. So every book has a preface. And in the preface, William Wordsworth specially focused his attention on 3 things. And which are they? Number 1 is definition of poetry. What is poetry? And he says, poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings, emotions recollected in tranquility. What a definition! It is spontaneous. It is feelings. Those are the overflow. So I think this is the perfect definition of poem. Next, he defines the subject of poetry. What should be the subjects of poetry? Poetry here means literature. So, as earlier I mentioned, that in the old age, in the ancient era, you find gods and goddesses, prince and princess, kings and queens are the subjects of literature. But for the first time, this tradition was changed by William Wordsworth, and he took common people, average people are the subjects of his poetry. Then the third thing he described, that is the diction of the poetry. And he says, in the preface, he says, the diction of poetry should be the diction of everyday speech. The diction of poetry should be the diction of common man, average man, or we can say the majority of the people, they are in the common class. So the language should be the language of common class, we can say. And this book, that is Lyrical Ballad, it is the manifesto of English Romanticism. Or in short, we can say the Romanticism starts with the publication of Lyrical Ballads in 1798. So, when we study William Wordsworth, we find that he is famous for, he is the most famous book, that is the Prelude, which consists in 14 books, 10 plus 4, 14 books. The poem consists 14 books. What a long poem it is. Okay. So this is an autobiographical work of William Wordsworth, which was published in 1850. The another work that is his Lucy poems. And William Wordsworth can say he has his own views regarding the nature while studying the features of English Romanticism. I told you, return to nature. Return. So you have taken the another way and you have to return it again. Means came back. People forget nature. And same is the theme of this poem. The world is too much with us. This sonnet, that is return to nature. And to him, to William Wordsworth, nature is our guide. Nature is our teacher. Nature is a philosopher. So nature teaches us. Nature is a nurse because we are fed on nurse. On this nature, we have to totally, who gives us fruits? Who gives us grain? Because nature fulfills our bare necessities or basic necessities. Shelter, food and water. Who gives us? Nature. And we the people destroying this nature, which is made for us. Almighty God made this nature for us and we are decaying it. So this is the message of this poem. The world is too much with us. So in one of his poems, William Wordsworth says, "O lady, we receive but what we give, and in our life does nature do." He explains the importance of nature in our life. If the nature is removed from our life, what would be our life? Meaningless, simply meaningless and nothing else. We cannot survive without nature. So this is the importance of nature. As far as his sonnets are concerned, majorly his sonnets are of different types. Or we can categorize them into 4 different parts. Just like the political sonnets, sonnets written on River Dodon, sonnets written on Scottish life, and sonnets written on love. Here the meaning of love is taken in expanded meanings. Again, love for nature. Love is not only lover and beloved. Love means here it is used, the term is used in a broad sense. So far as when we study his sonnets, even number of his sonnets are very popular. Just like upon Westminster Bridge, or London to Milton, and this one, that is the world is too much with us. It is also the famous, we can say, sonnet of the poet. And here the third part of our plan is over. Now we have to study the next part, that is octave. And what is octave? octave means the first 8 lines of the poem. What is said, because this is a Petrarchan model, this sonnet is written on the Petrarchan model, and we already studied what is Petrarchan sonnet. That is the Italians, it is also known as Italian sonnet, and the Renaissance poet Petrarch is the founder of it. And this model consists 2 parts, like octave and sistate. The first 8 lines are known as octave, and the second 6 lines are known as sistate. So in the octave, the idea or thought is introduced, while in the last part, that is the sistate or the last 6 lines, the idea or the thought is developed. So this is the structure of Petrarchan model. As far as the rhyme scheme of this Petrarchan model is concerned, as we already studied it in the sonnet number 29, that is the ABBA, ABBA, CDE, CDC. So this is the structure, and how it is applied to this sonnet. The world is too much with us. Let us have to study in the octave part of this poem. So what is this octave part? The industrial development. What happened after industrial development? And when the industrial development, man becomes a machine, nothing else. Man is the servant of machine. Man forgets himself. Man forgets nature. And for the sake of development, how we sold our hearts, it is described in the octave part of the poet. When you read the first line of the poem, the poet says, the world is too much with us, late and soon. Late and soon means in the past, in the present, and in the future, there is no change. And what is that? That we are the burden on the earth. We are getting and spending. The second line, very interesting line is spending and getting and spending. We lay waste our powers. We waste our power. We waste our energy. We waste our time on what? Getting and spending. Earning and spending. We earn money and we spend money. What is the meaning of life? Is it the meaning of life? No, absolutely no, my friends. Life is beyond that. So who will think the spiritual life? The spiritual life is very important. And so the poet says that nature is creator, but the nature is the creator and human being is the destructor. Nature is active, while human being is the passive. Human being cannot create anything. God has given us pure water. Who made it dirty? We the people. We the citizen of the world made this water dirty. God has given us pure air. Who made it polluted? Who polluted it? The human being. And why this happened? Due to the industrial development. We neglect our mother nature, because nature is our mother and we forget this mother. And human being only is the responsible of decline of this nature, where these harms and problems or disadvantages and evils of materialism is described here. What is materialism? That is, we are accumulating wealth, property, plot after plot, farm after farm, bungalow after bungalow, cars after car. We want to live luxurious life. This is known as material life. And for the sake of luxurious life or material life, we sold this mother in the market, because this deforestation, Why the temperature is going so fast? What is the reason of it? Who is the responsible for it? And the human being is the responsible for it. We are the responsible for it. Because we think that the goal of my life is to get more and more property, more and more wealth, and we forget this nature. Our role is just like the sleeping flower at night. The sleeping flower does not know what is going around it. In the same way, we neglect what is around us. We neglect the spiritual life. We only give importance to physical life. That I am educated, I have this property, I have 2 sons, they are in the foreign, like this. Okay. So here the poet appeals, do not think on your material life. Try to think on the spiritual life. And when you get the spiritual happiness, only when you go in the company of nature. When you are sad, go in the company of nature and you will get happiness. Okay, so this is the importance of nature. We are the selfish people. We are the greedy people. To live luxurious life, we sold our hearts. And this is the main reason why the poet is unhappy, that the loss of human values, for the sake of progress or development, this is the main root cause why the poet is unhappy. Here, he also gives example that we never observe the sun, the moon is shining on the sea. Okay, can you see this picture? You cannot, we can say, it is priceless. Okay, the nature is priceless. Or if you listen the blowing sound of the wind, it gives you happiness. And the poet says, number of people, they are neglecting it, they don't take any interest in it. And here the octave part ends. Now I come to the sisted, that is the next part. This part, the mood of William Wordsworth is described, and it is frustrated one, or it is irritated one. And he says that people believe God, but people forget nature. And he says nature is God, because he plays different types of the role. And here the poet would like that he wants to become pagan. What is pagan? That is he worships the pagan man worships the outdated religion. And he says, yes, I want to become pagan because my nature is my God. The real God. These trees, these rivers, this ocean, this sun, these stars, this moon, they are my real gods, because they gave me something. So he wants to become pagan. And in this state, he used 2 mythical characters related to the Greek mythology. The number one is Proteus, and the second one is Triton. So who are these Proteus and Titans? These are the mythical or mythological gods in Greek history. So Proteus is faces injustice imposed upon nature, and he wants to place the cycle life back to make the balance. He has capacity to manipulate and alter his reality. In short, we can say he has the power to change his shape and size according to his own will to avoid capture. While Triton is also a sea god, and this sea god, he has control on the waves. Actually, he has a magical power, we can say. He lives with his parents at the bottom of the sea. So here, when he remembers, and the poet would like to stand at a particular place where he gets the happiness when you go in the company of nature. So the last line is, have sight of Proteus rising from the sea, or hear Titan blow the withered horn. Because it is in the mythological, in this mythological character, we are told that this figure, this person has horns. Okay, and he has also human structure and the fish structure. Half is human being and half is fish. If you go on internet, you will get the picture of it. And now I come to the last point, that is the conclusion of this poem. The poem has universal thing. It is not only England, nature is important, and in India it is not important. So it can be appealed to whole world. So the poem has universal themes, and the nature, the poet would like to say that nature has a power, capacity to change this earth into heaven. But we the people are the main hurdles of it. The poem is addressed to the all human being on the earth. Now it is your duty to preserve this nature. It is your duty to conserve the nature or preserve the nature. For what? For our better future. If we behave as we behave today, then there will be create problem for the coming generation, or the human race would be over from this earth, or there would be no human of the earth if we neglect our duty. He says nature is our real wealth. Our real wealth is nature. This tree, for example, tree, water, this is because you cannot eat money, you cannot eat gold. Can you eat gold? Can you eat silver? No. You have to take the help of nature. So that is the poet says, this is the real we can say property, real worth. And here the poet verbally attacks the materialism, and he says how the spiritual happiness is decayed. The poet uses natural images like flower and wind and sun, moon and the sea. He lays stress on a return to nature, and the mythological characters are used to support his views on nature. Here, as already I mentioned, that is being the patriarchal model, the rhyme scheme of this poem is ABBA, ABBA, CDE, CDE. And last but not least, the diction of the poem, it is, we can say, different types of literary devices are used. Figures of speech are used. I would like to give some examples. For example, alliteration and metaphor is used in this poem. I am going to read the two lines of this poem. The sea that bears her bosom to the moon, and the winds that will howling at all hours. This howling or bosom indicates the metaphor, while the sea that bears her bosom, be, here we have alliteration is used. And in the seventh line of this poem, that is in the octave, we are told the line is like this: and are gathered now like sleeping flowers. He compares us with sleeping flower. Here the simile figure of speech is used. I hope you like this video. Thank you to spare time with me. Thank you.